Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the new Beta Explorer electric bike. And Aaron here knows a lot about electric bikes and vehicles in general more than myself, the boomer. I'll be listening to Aaron here, and he's going to give you some stats, and I'll chime in when I feel like it.
Okay, so we're just going to go over some preliminary. Obviously, nobody's really had hands-on with this bike outside of factory and maybe a few dealerships. So we're just going to be talking about some of the specs of the Explorer because we saw it. We do e-bike stuff, so we figured, hey, why not? We'll take kind of an overview of what we think of this so far. So kind of the first thing that they're claiming is a 17 horsepower motor with their 74 volt, 34 amp hour hot swappable battery with a top speed of 40 miles per hour. So we'll kind of break that down a little bit. The 17 horsepower, I believe they claim the max output of their bike is 12.5 kilowatts, which is quite a bit, actually. I'm surprised that they're claiming that, but I think that's probably not most of the time. It has a rocket mode, which I assume is probably the only time that we'll see a burst of 12.5 kilowatts. And we'll talk about the 74 volt, 34 amp hour battery. So if you do the math on that battery, it's a pretty small, or maybe not small, it's average. It's an average size battery. I would say it was about the same size as like a stock Teleria MX3 battery. The new MX4 Teleria R 45 amp hour 60 volt, it's going to have physically more juice than that. So I think what they're claiming for range, which we'll go over a little bit more as we go down this little article I'm looking at here, nowhere near what they're claiming. And that's normal in the industry. It's not that I'm saying, because they all do it, it's like, oh, hey, you're going to get 100 miles of range if you stay in Eco 1.
On flat ground. That's probably flat ground.
Yeah, for sure. And I doubt that it would even do that, especially with the 200-pound adult on it. Like, I don't know. That's my experience with these bikes. They just don't get the range that they overall claim. So
that's like a range with a tailwind.
Yeah, I
or something. How are they doing this? It'd be interesting to learn that in the future of how these e-bike manufacturers, whether they're pulling a number out of their ass or they're actually doing some type of range test and it's just on the test course, that's what they get. I don't know.
Well, and I think the overall takeaway with the size of the battery is that it's comparable to the other e-bikes that are out there. I would say when it comes to trail riding, if you're conservative-ish and doing normal uphills, downhills, whatever, you're probably looking at between 20 and 25 miles range realistically. Next thing, the seat height is 33.8 inches. That also, I believe, is about the same as our Teleria. Also about the same as the RAR. I think the RAR is a little bit taller at 35. Nonetheless, the overall seat height's a little bit smaller, so it could be less intimidating to a lot of smaller riders out there. I think these e-bikes offer some great options for shorter riders. It could be female, male, it doesn't really matter. Or whatever you are. I don't know what to go with that anymore. I don't discriminate. I just don't know what to do. And then the next thing I'll touch on is the wheel size. So they're going with a 1918 staggered setup, which is disappointing to me. I don't like that. One of the things that we dislike the most about these e-bikes is the smaller 19-inch wheels. It just doesn't... I don't know. It's just not the same. It's not as capable as a 21-inch wheel. And I get it if you need the shorter height for the bike, cool. All right. For us out there that are used to plowing over stuff and a 21-inch wheel, your brain really learns how to react to a 21-inch wheel. You have to relearn that when you get on these bikes because you'll hit something and you'll go over the bars like I did because, oh man, it's just one of those things. So I'm not happy with that. Some people won't care. I understand that.
In a hole that you're used to going over with a normal motorcycle, those smaller wheels, it seems like it just swallows it up. And yeah, it's totally different. It's scary in some circumstances.
It really is. And so the 18-inch, okay, cool. I can go with the standard rear 18. That's good because I feel like the 19s, getting a proper wider 19 is kind of a pain in the butt. There's not a whole lot of options. There's getting to be more. It's just 18 allows you to buy whatever tire you really want to put on the back. So that's no problem there. So not a fan of the wheels. Next one, tips the scale at 150 pounds. average, I would say, based on its battery size, the motor and everything. That's about the same weight as our RAR, and technically the Beta looks to have a bigger battery than the RAR, than a little bit. I actually think the RAR Mantis has kind of understated their battery, where Teleria kind of overstated. But, you know, how they rate the capacity of these batteries is always hard to tell. We have to weigh the batteries and see what the bikes actually weigh on a scale if we can ever get a hold of one of these. Okay, so the next part of this article I'm looking at here goes into the overall range. They say in the casual mode, 50 to 100 miles. Once again, I'll touch on that. There's no way. There's no way. 50 miles is no way. So
not with that battery.
Not with that battery. Not with that setup. I just 50 miles is super optimistic. So their medium mode, they're stating 30 to 60 miles. That maybe is getting a little bit more realistic. I still think 30 miles is pretty optimistic. Maybe on flat ground around town, maybe 35 to 40, you might be able to do. In our experience, and we mostly do off-road, we mostly do trail riding, more demanding, but at the same time, that's really what these bikes are intended for.
Oh, they did call it the Explorer. So are you not exploring stuff? That's how I would take that name, but to each their own, I guess. The battery also looks just like a Sur-Ron in Teleria battery. I mean, it looks like your standard e-bike Chinese battery at this point, which nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying it's not something special that Beta had made for them, which probably also helps lead to the lower cost because they're probably just reusing a lot of components.
Yeah. And that kind of goes to the thing is that this is probably an all Chinese made object. I don't see how it wouldn't be based on looking at the components. I don't think it's made in a Beta factory. Could be wrong. I'm not going to say that I know because I don't, but that's just my prediction.
We're not Beta dealers, so we don't have that information.
And then they talk about a rocket mode, which I'm guessing is the burst of the 12.5 kilowatt hours, a 10-second burst.
Which is nothing, 10 seconds?
Yeah,
that's like,
I mean, I guess it's enough, you know, if you're
trying to pass somebody?
I don't know. I mean, or if you're getting off the line on a trail, I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll see how that pans out in the real world. It does have reverse. Cool. More and more of the e-bikes are. I like the reverse. I can live without it. It's not a need. It's cool though. It's a cool feature.
It's a cool gimmick. The RAR Mantis has that. It's fun showing people that, and they get a kick out of it.
Okay, so then we talk about, of course, the battery can be hot swapped. That's standard for the entire industry of e-bikes at this point. I think that's maybe a gimmick. It's kind of a marketing ploy. And I say, okay, it's cool. Like us, we have multiple batteries. But your average user is not paying an extra $2,000 or maybe a little bit less for a stock battery to have a second one. But you're looking over $1,500 for a second battery. Most people just aren't going to pay
$2,300 for a big battery for the Teleria. So how many people are spending $2,300 on a battery? They're not. In fact, if you go on the forums and what have you, they're usually running the stock battery, and they might pick up another stock battery from somebody that was upgrading to the bigger battery. And then that's how they kind of get a deal, because no one's going in and spending that money on top. Now, some might say, well, it's just another $1,500, another $2,000. Well, we could do that all day, and then that's when you're in a $100,000 pickup truck. It's just a little bit more. It's just a little bit more. So I know at some point you have to draw the line.
All right. So the next one is Beta stated that the charging time is 2 to 3 hours. They didn't give any other specs. Now that's pretty fast. In my experience, I think the Teleria, well, we've got the bigger battery too. So I think the regular charger for the Teleria charges our big 57 amp hour in about 8 hours if it's dead. It's about right. So 2 to 3 hours sounds like it's a pretty fast charger.
Which there's downsides to fast charging
the faster you charge a battery, cycle after cycle, it can wear out your longevity a little bit more. So everybody wants a faster charger, but I think there needs to be a happy medium of, hey, I need to realize that if I'm not going to immediately ride this again, like I'm plugging it in overnight or something, you don't need to charge it in 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. So, best to have an option for fast charge and an option for slow charge. I think I would love to see that more with e-bike people.
And also, you don't want to store your battery fully charged either. So there is playing that game if you want to keep the cells healthy for the longevity.
So next thing is it says there's a storage space underneath the seat. Claims it can fit a water canteen, small dome tent, or a nice lunch for a picnic. I mean, okay, that's cool, I guess. I think the space would have been better served putting a bigger battery in the thing, but that's cool. I mean, I'm all for the gimmicks, and I like checking them out as companies come out with them. So we get into the release date, which is happening in October. So that's kind of late to the game, although it's coming into the holiday season, so maybe that'll work for people. I feel like with how fast e-bikes are evolving and more coming to the market, yeah, it might be hard. I think this one, the competitor that maybe most touches this bike from the big vendors is the Ultra B. I think might be even a little bit better in some aspects. We'll have to kind of see as they come
Well,
out.
and it's been out for a while.
Yeah, I can't get a hold of one though. It's real
And
hard.
you can't. Yeah, it's hard to get a hold of one, but they are out, and there's aftermarket. So a beta electric bike, how much aftermarket is there going to be?
True, true.
And it's kind of going to be like the raw Mantis. There's no aftermarket right now, but we also have a company that is solely dedicated to improving that bike. Where Beta's making gas bikes and other bikes, so how much R&D are they going to put into this? Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. And then, okay, we roll into the MSRP, which is, I was actually kind of surprised. I thought it was going to be more, especially coming from a brand name like Beta. So $4,890 is what they're claiming as an MSRP. It's pretty good. Our Raw Mantis MSRP is around 5. We go a little bit lower. Of course, you know, there's always going to be competition with dealers in that aspect. The Teleria R, which sits around $4,500. Now, there's some markup right now because of availability. But for the most part, I think the Teleria R, the Sting R right now is actually a really hard deal to break because you're talking about an 8 kilowatt bike with a 45 amp hour battery. They upgraded the suspension a bit. It's really quite a good package where Teleria kind of got, I think, kicked in the shins a bit with the MX3 and trying to compete with some of the other brands. So now they did a really good job. So competing with this, you know, we'll see. The thing that will make the price better in my mind is 72 volt system. A lot of people like that. I don't think 60 versus 72 is really a huge deal. It might be 74 volts here. I always get that. I always mess it up. It's 74 volts. That's my bad. I always want to say 72. But at the end of the day, I think the bike is going to be a good deal if the dealers are going to be really selling them at that price. And then we'll have to see what the components are, right? What is the suspension going to look like on this? Because everybody would assume with a brand name like Beta, the suspension is going to be awesome. It's going to be good. But there are some things that people don't like from Beta, like, you know, the X-Trainer suspension is disappointing to some. So we'll see how it's set up as we get it.
Or is this going to be more like the Teleria and the Suron, where they're using bicycle components and more of the Chinese, why are they doing this type mentality?
Yeah.
Like with the 19-inch wheels, for example, but the brakes and stuff like that, you're just like, what? What are you doing, you know? Charge maybe a little bit more and have name brand suspension and, you know, stuff that works. So I think at that price point, my personal opinion, we don't know because we don't have a bike, is that it's being made in China and it's probably coming out of one of the factories that makes the Teleria, the Suron, or any of those bikes.
Yeah,
really.
the motor looks suspiciously familiar to me, but you know, I mean, there's going to be a lot of factories that are making this stuff over there. And,
Well, that's the only way they can hit that price.
yeah, for sure.
Being a name brand like Beta. I mean, it'd be like KTM coming out with one. Everyone right away would be yelling, but I don't know. It seems this seems to be. Well, I'm just saying that cheap.
Yeah,
That
you're right.
cheap.
You're right.
If KTM came out with a $4,800 e-bike, everyone would scream it had to be made in China. But Beta, everyone's like, oh, this is interesting, and you know they're not saying where it's made. That just seems odd to me, how people mentally try to accept something.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, this is Beta trying to jump on the bandwagon of the e-bikes. They I think were like, hey, we need to get into this market. We need to come out with something that's competitive. Put it out, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think more competition in the market is always good for everybody. That's why I was such a fan of the Raw Mantis, which I still think it differentiates itself quite well from the other bikes. And so now we have the Beta coming. I think it'll be a good thing. I think I'm excited to see it. I would love to be able to get a hold of one. We'll see, because Beta.
I don't think the dealers are going to honor that price, though, because it's going if it's going to be limited supply, and you're Typical old school dealer is going to be like, hey, look, it's $5,800. It's $6,800. You know, there's going to be a markup.
Yep.
And there's going to be some people that buy it because maybe they have YouTube channels and they want to review it, and then other people that just like buying new things because it's new. But then the people that would really use the bike aren't going to be buying it because it's marked up so much. So I just feel it's going to be marked up.
Yep, I agree.
Hopefully y'all enjoyed this video with Aaron and myself discussing a new bike from Beta, the Explorer, and we'll see how that pans out, and we'll bring you more videos on that, and maybe we can get on one. Who knows? Maybe we can make that happen. Don't know, but we'll reach out to some dealers that we know that are friendly and see if they get one. At least, you know, let us walk around it, see it in person, touch it, feel it, smell it, all that good stuff. So y'all take care, stay well, stay safe, my friends, and get out there and ride. Have a good one. Bye.